Hello, and welcome to the St. Paul's Newman Center Homily Podcast for the 5th Sunday of Lent. I'm Tom Quinlivan. Thanks to all of you who listened and watched last weekend, and for all of your positive feedback. Hearing from you makes me even more excited for the day when we can gather together again. A reminder that all of the readings for this weekend can be found at usccb.org. Now let's take a silent moment together to connect ourselves in prayer to God and one another.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Now a man was ill, Lazarus from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who had anointed the Lord with perfumed oil and dried his feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was ill. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, saying, "Master, the one you love is ill." When Jesus heard this, he said, "This illness is not to end in death, but is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister Mary and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to his disciples, "Let us go back to Judea." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews were just trying to stone you, and you want to go back there?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours in a day? If one walks during the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks at night, he does stumble, because the light is not in him." He said this, and then told them, "Our friend Lazarus is asleep, but I am going to awaken him." So the disciples said to him, "Master, if he is asleep, he will be saved." But Jesus was talking about his death, while they thought that he meant ordinary sleep. So then Jesus said to them in reply, "Lazarus has died, and I am glad for you that I was not there, that you may believe. Let us go to him." So Thomas, the twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us also go to die with him."
Roll away the stone. See the glory of God. Roll away the stone. Roll away the stone. See the glory of God. Roll away the stone.
When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, only about 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise." Martha said to him, "I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus told her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord. I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world."
Roll away the stone. See the glory of God. Roll away the stone.
When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary secretly, saying, "The teacher is here and is asking for you." As soon as Mary heard this, she rose quickly and went to Jesus, for Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still where Martha had met him. So when the Jews who were with Mary in the house comforting her saw her get up quickly and go out, they followed her, presuming that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he became perturbed and deeply troubled and said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to Jesus, "Sir, come and see." And Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so that Lazarus would not have died?" So Jesus, perturbed again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay across it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the dead man's sister, said to him, "Lord, by now there will be a stench. My brother has been dead for 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?"
Roll away the stone, see the glory of God. Roll away the stone.
So they took the stone away, and Jesus raised his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me, but because of the crowd here I have said this, that they may believe that you sent me." And when he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!"
Roll away the stone, see the glory of God. Roll away the stone. Roll away the stone, see the glory of God. Roll away the stone.
The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial bands, and his face was wrapped in a cloth. So Jesus said to them, "Untie him and let him go." Now many of the Jews had come to Mary and seen what he had done, began to believe in him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
It's a variation on the story I often share about the boy afraid of the dark. This time, his mother asked him to go out to the back porch and bring her the broom. He turned to his mother and said, "Mama, I don't want to go out there. It's dark." Henry's mother smiled reassuringly at him and said, "You don't have to be afraid of the dark, dear. Jesus is out there, and he will look after you and protect you." Henry looked intently at his mother and asked, "Are you sure he's out there?" "Yes, I am sure. He is everywhere and is always ready to help you when you need him," she said. Henry thought about that for a minute and then went to the back door, cracked it open a little. Whispering so his mother couldn't hear him, he said, "Jesus, if you're out there, would you please hand me the broom?" In 2 weeks, we will recall the death of Jesus. But today, we are confronted with the death of Lazarus. It seems we're being asked to think about what we would prefer not to think about: death. For all of us, fear, darkness, the possibility of illness, a lack of employment, and even death are becoming more real. Do you find yourselves feeling like Henry at the back door with his question, "Jesus, are you out there in the dark? Really? It's hard to believe 7 days have passed since we journeyed with Jesus to meet the man born blind. Do you remember what the disciples asked Jesus? Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Do you remember how Jesus answered? He essentially says that's the wrong question. It's not about fault or blame. It is about the works of God being made visible. In the midst of more questions this weekend about the illness of Lazarus and Jesus' delay in responding, Jesus promises again that the glory of God will be the end, not Lazarus' death. In this last week, I'm learning to pay closer attention to my own emotions. I wish I could say this learning was chosen voluntarily. These past 2 days in particular, I found tears are right beneath the surface in nearly every conversation. I've not yet been able to read through the gospel for this weekend without a lump forming in my throat as I sit with Martha and Mary's confusion and pain. Isn't this Jesus their friend? So intimate was Mary with Jesus that she anointed his feet with oil and dried them with her hair. Her heart must have been screaming, Jesus, are you out there? The emotions of Jesus are powerful as well. When he hears that Lazarus is ill, at first he appears to do nothing, but that's not the case. He knows that God's glory will be shown, and I believe he is contemplating his journey back to Bethany and Jerusalem. He knows this will be the place of his death. When he announces to the disciples that they are going to go back to that area, they're incredulous. Rabbi, the Jews were just trying to stone you, and you want to go back there? In the ultimate gift, Jesus decides to return, knowing that he will be trading his life for his friend Lazarus. There is no doubt Jesus loved Lazarus. When Mary finally comes out to meet Jesus, she falls to the ground and echoes the words of her sister Martha. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. As Jesus watches the tears flow from her eyes and the eyes of those around, he was deeply moved. His own spirit groaned within him, and he too began to weep. My friends, I don't want to move too quickly to Lazarus coming out of the tomb. I need to sit here for a while with Mary and weep. I need to acknowledge the worry in my own spirit. What is our God feeling right now in this time of suffering? I don't presume to know God's mind or how God's feelings work, but we do know that Jesus is the revelation of God. Jesus knows that Lazarus will rise, and yet he still weeps. Why? Why did Jesus wait so long to go to Bethany? Wouldn't a day have been enough? If it was just about proving the power of God through the raising of Lazarus, why did he let them go through all the trouble of burying him to begin with? More to our current situation, why did he let them weep and mourn for days if raising Lazarus was the plan all along? Maybe Jesus not only knew the power of truly entering into suffering for others, but for himself as well. Maybe he knew that we have to be in the tomb long enough to be ready for new life and transformation. People are already talking about what things will be like when we get back to normal. I have no idea what that will be, when that will be. And I fear asking those questions will force me to miss the opportunity that darkness holds for me, for us. We know that resurrection is real. We know that new life will come even from this current crisis. But do we have the courage to sit in the darkness long enough? Why am I feeling so anxious, so emotional right now when there's so little I can control? There's a wonderful article that you can find on our website that helped me to understand what's going on inside of me. The feeling I'm experiencing, and I'm guessing you are too, is grief. The author of the article reminds us that anything that is real in life can be mentioned. And if it can be mentioned, it can be managed. That was the principle that grounded the ministry of Fred Rogers. Mr. Rogers wanted to help young children to talk about what were considered very adult realities and some painful issues: racism, divorce, death. I think we need to talk about this shared experience of grief. But this is not ordinary grief that we're feeling. It's something called anticipatory grief, the feeling we get about what the future holds when we're uncertain. With a virus, this kind of grief is so confusing. Our primitive mind knows something bad is happening, but we can't see it. This breaks our sense of safety. We're feeling that collectively today. You know that there are stages of grief. There's denial, what we say a lot early on. This virus, it won't affect us. There's anger. You're making me stay home and taking away my activities. There's bargaining. Okay, if I social distance for 2 weeks, everything will be better, right? There's sadness. I don't know when this will end. And finally, there's acceptance. This is happening. I have to figure out how to proceed. Acceptance, as you might imagine, is where the true power lies. For those of us with faith, acceptance begins by recognizing that I am in the darkness of the tomb. Now what? Might I first suggest that this darkening is an opportunity to deepen our solidarity with one another, not just in our faith community or the city of Laramie, but with our sisters and brothers throughout the world who know what it is like on a daily basis to worry about money, not getting enough water, not having enough food. For many of these people, toilet paper is something they've never even known. While we are not gathering for liturgies, we remember the thousands across the globe with no regular access to the sacraments of the church. Those for whom living their faith in their families is normative. We can think of those of our friends who are in nursing homes and hospitals who now have no access to visitors or family. We imagine being in jail or in prison as the news of a new outbreak starts to spread among those incarcerated. There is a close relationship between individual heartache and the brokenheartedness of the world. After years of being taught that the way to deal with painful emotions is to get rid of them, it can take a lot of reschooling to learn to sit with them instead. Sitting with painful emotions may seem to be the opposite of what we should be doing in the middle of grief, but they lead to the next step: listening and action. What's that sound? That stone scraping on stone. Are there voices out there? The voice of my sister Mary? Is that Jesus? Yes. Listen for his voice. Listen to God calling you forward. In the midst of darkness, there are so many things that we can still do. Get on the phone and call people. Write letters. Participate in one of the new opportunities for study or prayer being offered at St. Paul's. Post some photos of your family praying together on our Facebook page. Go to the diocesan website to download resources for celebrating the liturgy of the Word in your homes. You'll also find resources for faith formation in your families there as well. I regret that we don't get to know more of what Lazarus' life was like after being called forward from that tomb. There's only one more story of him in chapter 12 of John's Gospel. Did Lazarus return to life as normal, or was he transformed by his time in the tomb? I choose to believe in transformation. I have to believe in transformation. Of course, the ultimate transformation is the resurrection of Christ that we will celebrate in 3 short weeks. Even while in darkness, we keep our eyes focused on resurrection. So where are you on the journey? Maybe you are like Henry and I, on the back porch with that door cracked, asking, Jesus, are you there? It must have been the same question Lazarus asked when he heard the words, Lazarus, come out. Jesus, are you there? The good news is that he was and he is. For Lazarus, for you, and for me.
Thank you for joining us in prayer again this week. Please continue to reach out and tell us how you are practicing your faith during this time by sending an email to tom@newmancenter.org. Several of you said you prayed the rosary with Pope Francis this week, praying for those affected by coronavirus. Others of you have been participating in virtual Bible studies and leading prayer groups. It was also wonderful to hear how many of you have been able to continue praying the Stations of the Cross at home on Fridays using YouTube videos. Keep up the great work. To make your weekly contribution or to donate to St. Paul's, you can visit newmancenter.org/donate. There you will find information about electronic giving, as well as giving via automatic withdrawal from your bank account. Until next week, peace, God bless, and be well.